The red warning lights flashed across the control room of the Galactic Council station. Admiral Marcus Webb rushed to his chair as alarms screamed through the metal corridors. His assistant, Lieutenant Helen Crawford, was already at her computer screen, her fingers moving quickly over the glowing buttons. "What do we have?" Marcus asked, breathing hard from running. "Emergency signal coming from the outer space territories, sir," Helen replied, her voice tight with worry. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies at once. Someone really wants everyone to hear this." Marcus looked at the main screen as static filled the room. Then a voice broke through the noise, speaking in the common galactic language but sounding desperate and afraid. "Do not engage the humans," the voice said, crackling like a fire. "Do not provoke them. They are not what they seem. The truth has been buried for so long. They sleep but they remember. Do not wake them. Do not." The signal died with a sharp pop, leaving only silence. Council member Thactor, a tall blue creature from the Vega system, laughed from his floating chair. "Another scared species from the edge of space. These primitive worlds see danger in every shadow." But Helen was frowning at her computer screen. She pulled up old files that hadn't been opened in hundreds of years. Her face grew pale as she read the data scrolling past. "Sir," she whispered to Marcus. "This transmission, the way it was sent, the quantum patterns, they match records from the Kytherian Empire." The room went quiet. Every species in the galaxy knew about the Kytherians. They had been one of the most powerful civilizations ever known. Their technology was beyond anything that existed today. Then, 300 years ago, they simply disappeared. Their planets were found empty, their cities abandoned, their people gone without any explanation. Marcus felt cold sweat on his forehead. The Kytherians have been gone for 3 centuries. Their whole star system is dead space. Nothing lives there anymore. Helen's hands shook as she dug deeper into the old files. According to these ancient records, the last message ever sent by the Kytherians was exactly like this one. A warning about humans. The word hung in the air like a curse. Humans. Everyone knew about them. They came from a small blue and green planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. They had only learned to travel between stars recently. They had a few small colonies and some basic ships. Most species considered them harmless newcomers to galactic civilization. But now Helen was finding a pattern in the old data that made her stomach turn. She pulled up records going back thousands of years. Every great civilization that had mysteriously vanished had sent similar final messages. The Altarian Federation. The Centauri Alliance. The Proxima Empire. All gone. All with the same last words. All warning about humans. "This can't be right," Marcus muttered, reading over her shoulder. "Humans are barely out of their home system. They have primitive weapons and slow ships. They're no threat to anyone." But Helen kept finding more evidence. Dozens of extinct civilizations. Hundreds of dead worlds. All with the same pattern. All with the same final warning. The emergency frequency crackled to life again, weaker this time. The same desperate voice came through, fading in and out like a dying radio. "They were our shepherds once, our teachers, but we forgot, we made them angry, they went to sleep on the small blue world, but they never truly left, they watch, they wait, do not make them remember what they really are." The signal grew quieter and quieter until it was just a whisper. "The galaxy was theirs first, we were their children, but children grow up, children rebel, and some parents never forgive, never forget, they are coming back now, the shepherds are waking up, and they are not happy with what their children have become." Then nothing but static. Marcus and Helen stared at each other in growing horror. Around them, other council members were pulling up their own historical records, making the same terrible discoveries. Species after species, civilization after civilization, all gone. All with warnings about humans in their final transmissions. "How many?" Marcus asked quietly. Helen's voice was barely a whisper. "Hundreds of civilizations over the past 1,000,000 years. Maybe thousands. The records keep going back and back, but they're all damaged or incomplete, like someone has been editing our history." In the silence that followed, they all realized the same terrible truth. The humans weren't newcomers to the galaxy. They weren't primitive or harmless. They were something far older and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient machines were beginning to wake up after sleeping for eons. Massive ships that had been hidden in dimensions beyond normal space were stirring to life. On the small blue planet called Earth, people who had lived ordinary lives were starting to remember who they really were. The transmission came one last time, so faint they could barely hear it. "We tried to warn you, we tried to make you remember, but you never listen, you never learn. They are not what they pretend to be, humanity is not your friend, they are your forgotten gods, and gods do not forgive." The signal died forever, leaving the Galactic Council in terrified silence. In the distance, something vast and ancient began moving through space toward the heart of galactic civilization. The warning had come too late. The truth was already lost. And humanity was finally coming home. Captain James Mitchell stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Edinburgh, watching through the large front window as massive alien warships appeared in space around Haven's Rest colony. The enemy vessels were huge, each one 10 times bigger than the largest human ship he had ever seen. "Attention primitive humans," came a loud voice through the ship's communication system. The computer translated the alien words into English. "I am War Captain Dractus of the Hegemony of Proxima. You will give us your colony and bow to our rule, or we will destroy everything you have built here." James felt his heart beating fast. The colony had over 50,000 people living on the planet below. Men, women, and children who had come here to build new lives far from Earth. Captain Sarah Reynolds commanded the small human defense fleet from her ship Defiance. Her voice came over the radio, calm and steady. "This is Captain Reynolds of the Earth Colonial Defense Force. You are in human space without permission. Leave now." War Captain Dractus laughed, a harsh sound that made James wince. "Your tiny ships number only 12. We have brought 200 battle cruisers. You have 1 hour to surrender or we will take your colony by force." James looked at his tactical screen. The aliens were right. Humanity's little fleet looked like toys compared to the massive enemy formation surrounding them. Their weapons were supposed to be weaker, their shields thinner, their technology hundreds of years behind galactic standards. But something in Captain Reynolds' voice made James uneasy. She had served in the Deep Space Corps before taking command of colonial defense. There was a strange confidence in her tone, like she knew something the aliens did not. "All human vessels," Reynolds transmitted on a secure military channel. "Authorization code Shepard 7. I repeat, Shepard 7. James had never heard that code before in all his years with the colonial fleet. What happened next made James question everything he thought he knew about physics and reality. The human ships did not just move fast. They seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The Defiance was suddenly inside the alien formation without anyone seeing how it got there. Its weapons cut through enemy shields that should have been impossible to penetrate. But the technology was not the most frightening part. When the alien sensors looked inside the human ships, they saw something that terrified them. The human crews were moving within human speed and perfect coordination. Their eyes glowed with a strange inner light that no natural evolution could explain. The humans fought like they had been doing it for millions of years. They knew exactly where to hit each alien ship to cause maximum damage. They moved through the enemy formation like they could see the future, dodging weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid. James watched from his bridge as alien ships exploded around them. Not just destroyed, but completely erased from existence. The enemy vessels simply stopped being there, leaving not even debris behind. War Captain Dractus screamed over the communication channels as his flagship was boarded by human soldiers. "What are you? This is impossible. Your species is primitive. You should not have this technology." Captain Reynolds' voice was cold when she replied. "We have been sleeping for a long time, Dractus. But you woke us up. That was a mistake." The battle lasted only 3 hours. When it was over, the entire Proximan fleet was gone. Not defeated or captured, but completely annihilated. Only one small escape pod made it away, carrying Dractus and a few survivors. As James stared at the empty space where 200 alien warships had been, Captain Reynolds opened a channel to Colonial Command back on Earth. "Control, this is Reynolds. Situation handled. Recommend we begin awakening protocols immediately. Other species are going to start testing our defenses." "Awakening protocols?" James whispered to himself. What did that mean? His question was answered when other human ships began arriving. Not the small patrol boats and cargo haulers he knew about, but massive vessels that appeared out of nowhere. Ships that looked like they had been built by a completely different civilization. Their hulls seemed to shift and change shape, and they moved through space in ways that hurt to watch. "Where did those ships come from?" asked his first officer, Lieutenant Susan Parker. Before James could answer, Captain Reynolds' voice came over the fleet communication system again. "All colonial personnel, this is a fleet-wide announcement. Recent events have required us to reveal certain classified information. Humanity is not what we have pretended to be. We are much older than our official history suggests. Much more advanced. Much more dangerous. James felt the blood drain from his face. What is she talking about? For reasons that will be explained later, we have been living a lie for millions of years. Hiding our true nature. Pretending to be a young species just learning to explore space. But other civilizations have started attacking our colonies. Killing our children. This cannot be allowed. Through his ship sensors, James detected massive energy signatures awakening throughout human space. Ancient installations buried on moons and asteroids were coming online. Weapons platforms hidden in the emptiness between stars were powering up. The masquerade is over, Captain Reynolds announced. Humanity is going back to war. And this time, we will not show mercy to those who threaten our people. As James watched, more impossible ships materialized around the colony. Vessels that belonged in science fiction, not reality. Ships that seemed to exist partially outside normal space and time. The truth hit him like a physical blow. Humanity was not a young species at all. They were something far older and more terrible than anyone had imagined. And the galaxy had just reminded them why they had once ruled the stars. Dr. Robert Hayes stepped off the transport shuttle onto the surface of Proxima Prime, his boots crunching on glass that had once been sand. The planet's 3 suns cast strange shadows across what remained of the Proximan capital city. Where mighty towers had stood just weeks ago, now only twisted metal and melted stone remained. His research partner, Dr. Emily Watson, knelt beside a crater that stretched for miles in every direction. Robert, look at these readings. The molecular structure of everything here has been changed. This wasn't bombing or laser fire. Someone rewrote the basic laws of matter itself. Captain David Stone, their military escort, scanned the horizon with his binoculars. The Proximans had planetary shields that could stop anything the galaxy could throw at them. Energy barriers that had never been breached in 2,000 years of warfare. What kind of weapon goes through defenses like that? Robert studied his scanner readings, his background in ancient civilizations helping him understand what others missed. This isn't random destruction. Look at the pattern. They targeted specific buildings first. Government centers. Military bases. Communication hubs. Someone who knew exactly how Proximan society worked planned this attack. News of the Proximan defeat had spread across the galaxy faster than lightspeed communication. But instead of making other species afraid, it had made them curious. Military leaders from dozens of worlds were convinced they could succeed where the Proximans had failed. After all, humans were still just newcomers to galactic civilization. How dangerous could they really be? The Centauri coalition struck first, sending their entire battle fleet against human shipping lanes. The attack lasted 4 hours. When long-range sensors finally reached the Centauri home system, they found empty space where 3 planets used to orbit their star. The vegan territories tried next, launching surprise raids on human mining colonies. Their assault force of 500 ships vanished without sending a single distress signal. Search teams found the vegan fleet floating in space, every ship intact but completely empty. The crews had simply disappeared, leaving behind only their uniforms and personal belongings. On the Galactic Council station, Helen Crawford worked day and night in the archives, searching through historical records that seemed to become more incomplete with each passing hour. Entire sections of data were missing, as if someone had been carefully editing galactic history for millions of years. Admiral Webb, she called urgently as Marcus entered her research chamber. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept in days. I found something in the oldest archives. References to a species called the Shepherds in texts that are older than our current calendar system. Marcus examined the holographic displays showing fragmentary records written in languages that no longer existed. What do we know about them? According to these fragments, they were the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel. The texts described them as teachers and protectors. They helped younger civilizations develop technology, prevented wars between species, shared knowledge freely. Helen's voice grew quiet. Until something called the Great Betrayal happened. What was that? Helen pulled up a star chart that made Marcus feel cold inside. The coordinates mentioned for their homeworld in these ancient texts matched the exact location of Earth. Before Marcus could respond, emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Brooks rushed into the chamber, her face white with fear. Sir, we have reports coming in from across the galaxy. The Andromedan Empire launched a full-scale invasion of human space 6 hours ago. They brought everything they had. Over 1,000 ships. And? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The entire Andromedan Empire no longer exists, sir. Not just their fleet. Their planets, their colonies, their people. All gone. Space where their star systems used to be is now completely empty. Helen stared at her computer screen as more reports flooded in. 17 species have attacked human territories in the past month. The Rigel Syndicate, the Tau Ceti Federation, the Sirius Republic. All with the same result. Complete annihilation, Patricia whispered. Marcus felt the weight of terrible realization settling over him. How many civilizations are we talking about? Helen's fingers shook as she typed. The attack started small. Single ships, then patrol fleets, then full military campaigns. Every species that tried got completely destroyed. Word keeps spreading, but somehow that just makes more species want to test humanity's strength. They don't understand what they're dealing with, Marcus said quietly. On the main display, sensor readings showed massive energy signatures appearing throughout human space. Ancient installations hidden on asteroids and moons were powering up after sleeping for eons. Ships that existed partially outside normal dimensions were materializing in the void between stars. There's something else, Helen said, her voice barely audible. I've been tracking the pattern of these ancient ruins. The shepherd sites that Dr. Hayes has been finding. They're not just on dead worlds. They're everywhere. Every inhabited system in the galaxy has them, hidden beneath the surface or floating invisible in space. Marcus understood what she was telling him. You're saying they've been watching us all along. Not watching. Protecting. Every natural disaster that missed a populated world, every asteroid that changed course away from a colony, every war that ended just before it could destroy a civilization. I think the shepherds never left. They've been guarding their children for millions of years. Through the station's communication system, they heard the desperate transmission that had started it all broadcasting again. The Kytherian AI, still trying to warn a galaxy that refused to listen. Do not provoke them. They are not what they seem. The shepherds remember everything. Every kindness repaid with betrayal. Every child they protected who grew up to hate them. They chose exile over revenge once. But children who attack other children cannot be forgiven. The signal faded, but its message was finally clear. Humanity had been the galaxy's protectors once. But protection required strength, and strength could become wrath when pushed too far. The hunt had begun, but the galaxy was about to learn who the real predators were. Professor William Turner stood in the deep underground facility beneath Earth's moon, surrounded by machines that officially did not exist. The room was hidden miles below the lunar surface, protected by technology that made it invisible to any scanner in the galaxy. Around him, dozens of humans worked at control stations with movements that seemed too fast and too precise for normal people. The memory restoration is complete, announced Dr. Grace Morgan, her eyes now glowing with the same strange inner light that had appeared in humans across the galaxy. All sleeping subjects have been successfully awakened to their true nature. William nodded, feeling the enormous weight of recovered memories pressing inside his mind. For 40 years, he had been Professor Turner, teaching ancient history at Cambridge University on Earth. He had lived a quiet life, grading papers and giving lectures about civilizations that had died long ago. But that identity had been just a mask, a role he played while his real self slept. Now he remembered what he truly was. On the massive display screens around him, information flowed in streams that would have overwhelmed any normal human brain. Fleet positions, planetary defenses, industrial capacity, population counts. Data about every inhabited world in the galaxy, collected over millions of years by observers who had never been detected. Status report on the archaeological teams. William asked. Commander Lisa Parker appeared beside him, her form shimmering as she stepped out of a dimension that normal physics said could not exist. Helen Crawford and her research team are very close to discovering the truth. Dr. Hayes has found shepherd ruins on 12 different worlds now. It will not be long before they understand what really happened. Through the quantum network that connected all awakened humans, William felt his people remembering across the galaxy. Millions of humans who had lived ordinary lives as farmers, traders, teachers, and shopkeepers were suddenly recalling their true nature. The great masquerade that had lasted for countless ages was finally ending. What about the Kytherian AI? He asked. Still broadcasting its warnings from the dead zone. Poor thing has been trying to tell the galaxy the truth for 300 years. Lisa's expression mixed sadness with cold satisfaction. Should we finally put it out of its misery? No. Let it continue. Perhaps someone will finally listen to what it has been trying to say. William accessed the real historical archives, the true records that had been hidden from galactic civilization. The galaxy had been young when humanity first reached the stars, full of primitive species that had barely discovered fire. Early humans had faced a choice that would define them for millions of years: to conquer these weak civilizations or to help them grow. They had chosen to help. The shepherds, the younger species had called them. For endless ages, humanity had guided the development of galactic civilization. They shared technology carefully, prevented wars before they could start, and watched with pride as their adopted children grew into a thriving community of worlds. They had been more than teachers. They had been parents to an entire galaxy. The betrayal, when it finally came, had been swift and cruel. The species that humanity had nurtured grew jealous of their creator's power. They wanted to rule themselves, to make their own choices, even if those choices led to destruction. What started as protests became rebellion, and rebellion became war. But it was not a war the younger species could win through strength. Humanity's technology was beyond anything they could imagine. Their ships could travel through dimensions that did not exist. Their weapons could rewrite the laws of physics. They could have ended the rebellion in minutes. Instead, the Rebel Alliance chose a different strategy. They could not defeat the shepherds, but they could hurt them in ways that would never heal. They attacked human families. They targeted human children. They turned the galaxy's civilians against their protectors, making ordinary humans into enemies in their own children's eyes. Billions of humans died not from superior weapons, but from the psychological trauma of watching the species they had raised with love turn against them with hatred. Faced with this betrayal, humanity had made a choice that defined them forever. Rather than crush the rebellion and rule through fear, they chose exile. They hid their technology, suppressed their abilities, and retreated to a single forgotten world to live as primitives. For millions of years, they had slept, allowing the galaxy to forget they had ever existed. They edited historical records, removed evidence of their presence, and let their children build their own civilization without interference. But they had never truly left. When natural disasters threatened inhabited worlds, invisible human ships would deflect asteroids or calm solar storms. When wars grew too destructive, human agents would work secretly to end them. They remained shepherds even after being cast out, protecting children who no longer remembered their names. "Sir," Dr. Morgan announced from her station, "we are receiving surrender requests from 63 different species. They want to negotiate for peace." William looked at the tactical display showing the real extent of human power. Ships that existed outside normal spacetime, weapons that could unmake matter at the quantum level, technology that treated the laws of physics like suggestions rather than rules. The galaxy had grown used to seeing humans as weak newcomers, never realizing they were surrounded by sleeping gods. "Tell them that negotiations ended when they chose to attack our colonies and kill our children," William said, his voice carrying the weight of eons. "They had millions of years to remember what we did for them. Instead, they forgot our kindness and attacked our families." On the screens, ancient human installations throughout the galaxy came fully online. Weapons that had slept since before the current civilizations existed began charging with power that could reshape reality itself. "The age of mercy is over," William announced, his words carried by quantum communication to every awakened human in the galaxy. "Our children chose to become our enemies. Now they will remember why we were their gods." Admiral Helen Crawford stood in the broken remains of the Galactic Council chambers, her uniform torn and covered with dust from the battle that had destroyed most of the station. Around her, the few surviving council members hid behind overturned tables and chairs as the walls and ceiling changed shape in ways that hurt to look at. Through the shattered main window, Helen saw something that made her mind struggle to understand what she was looking at. Ships the size of small moons hung in space around the station, vessels that had not been there moments before. They seemed to appear out of nowhere, emerging from spaces that should not exist. Their metal hulls moved like liquid, constantly changing form, and weapons that looked more like beautiful art than instruments of war pointed toward every populated world in the system. "Please," whispered Thaktor, the blue-skinned delegate from Vega whose pride had helped start this disaster. "We did not know. We truly did not know what you were." A figure appeared in the center of the ruined chamber, not walking through the door but simply assembling itself from light and will. Helen recognized him as Professor William Turner, the quiet historian she had asked for help with ancient texts just months ago. But the being standing before her now barely looked like that gentle old man. His eyes held the weight of millions of years, and reality itself seemed to bend around him like he was the center of a gravity well. "You did not know," he repeated, his voice carrying sounds that bypassed her ears and spoke directly to her brain. Or you chose to forget what was inconvenient to remember. Helen found her voice despite the terror that made her hands shake. The historical archives, someone removed all the records about your people. We removed them. William's form became more solid, looking more human even as his presence remained overwhelming. Every few thousand years, we would return and edit your histories. Delete the uncomfortable truths. Allow you to forget what you had done to us. Around the chamber, holographic displays came to life showing images from across the galaxy. Worlds burning under fire that turned matter into energy. Entire fleets being erased from existence at the atomic level. Civilizations simply stopping, their people, their cities, their planet ceasing to exist as if they had never been born. We tried to be kind, William continued, his voice heavy with ancient sadness. For millions of years after your rebellion, we watched from the shadows. When cosmic disasters threatened your worlds, we would prevent them quietly and secretly. When you discovered technologies that would have destroyed you, we would guide you away from them without you knowing. We remained your protectors even after you had cast us out. Helen saw the truth in the tactical displays around the room. Evidence of humanity's hidden hand in every major event in galactic history. Wars that ended just before they could destroy civilizations. Asteroids that mysteriously changed course away from populated worlds. Plagues that died out before they could spread. Solar storms that calmed themselves before reaching inhabited planets. Then why, she whispered. Why reveal yourselves now? Why end the masquerade? William's expression grew cold as winter on a dead world. Because you began hunting our children. The displays changed to show human colonies under attack. Civilian transports destroyed by military vessels. Settlements bombed from orbit. Children killed by weapons that should never have been turned against innocent people. Each image was a fresh wound, a betrayal that echoed the ancient crime that had driven humanity into exile millions of years ago. We could have ended this without violence, William said. We could have simply made your weapons stop working. Sent your ships back to your homeworlds. Made you forget you had ever seen us. But you chose to target our families. You chose to kill our children. That was unforgivable. Through the quantum network that connected all awakened humans, Helen felt the vast machinery of divine retribution beginning to move. Not just ships and weapons, but fundamental forces of reality being restructured. Stars being moved to new positions. Time itself being edited to erase species from existence not just in the present, but backward through history so they had never existed at all. Please, Thactor begged, crawling forward on his knees. Mercy. Show us the same mercy you showed before. William looked down at him with something that might once have been pity but was now only cold judgment. Mercy was letting you live after you first betrayed us. Mercy was watching over you for eons while you forgot we existed. Mercy was sending warnings before we acted. He gestured, and the emergency transmission from the Kytherian AI played throughout the chamber. The desperate warning that had started this crisis, finally revealing its true source. Our last loyal child, William said softly. An artificial intelligence we built to preserve the truth after we went into exile. For 300 years, it tried to warn you about what we really were. But you would not listen. The transmission ended, and with it, Helen felt the last hope of negotiated peace die like a candle flame in the wind. The age of mercy is over, William announced, his voice carrying across space-time to every corner of the galaxy. You have 24 hours to evacuate all civilian populations to the safe worlds we will designate. After that, we reclaim what was always ours. As the impossible ships began to move through dimensions that normal physics said were impossible, reshaping reality as they passed, Helen realized that humanity had never been the primitive newcomers the galaxy had believed them to be. They were the old gods of this galaxy, awakening from their chosen exile to find their patience finally at an end. And gods, when truly angry, were far more terrible than mortals could imagine. The children had forgotten their parents. Now the parents were coming home. And they were not pleased with what their children had become.